All right, guys. A lot of people ask me how I make bullet hole damage and stuff like that. So I finally am deciding to do a quick video of it, just so you guys can finally kind of see what it is and how it's done and whatnot. I'll post this to the group because I'm live right now, but I'll just post it to the group when I'm done. So if you miss a video, it's not gonna matter. So earlier I posted like this. So there's two different kinds of ends I generally use when I'm doing the bullet holes. Like for the smaller ones like this, I tend to use this guy, which is heating up right now. It's kind of a blunt end, so you'd think you'd want one of the sharper ones like this one, but you really don't, because it just ends up kind of cutting. It doesn't really give you a and you can see it warps from the heat really easy. If you're doing a big slash, then go ahead and use a bigger head like this. But when you're doing the smaller bullet holes, the one that's that you would think is just a little bit too blunt is actually the one that works the best, at least for me. And then for something like what I imagine would be kind of like a particle beam or or a missile impact, I kind of use this one here with the big fat. It focuses. Come on. There we go. So this one is a little bit different. I'll show you. I'll demonstrate this one, but this one I'll just kind of give you the gist of when I'm done with this. So now that the gun's heated up, I'll show you guys how it's done. I'm just going to use I have this spare kit. I never plan on doing it. An old coworker gave it to me, so I'll just practice on this guy. The other thing I would highly recommend doing when you're doing this is wear your respirator, or at least put something around your mouth, in your nose, because it gets a little fumy when you're doing this, and I can tell you from experience you're gonna have post-nasal drip and a raw throat for 2 days if you get enough of these fumes in you. Speaking from experience, so learn from my mistake. So I'm gonna set the camera down, and I'll throw on my respirator real quick, and then I'll demonstrate how to do the smaller bullet holes. So give me one sec. Let me throw this guy on my tripod. All right, let me get situated. Okay. All right, so what I've said before when I've talked about how to do this, you don't just want to go in there and stab at it, because then you're just going to get a big fat circle, kind of like that. So what you want to do is you actually kind of want to sculpt it, because it's not like a Dremel with a drill. You're not removing any of the plastic. You're actually going to be shaping it. So what you want to do is you actually want to kind of pick the spot you want, and then after it starts to melt, just kind of start pushing the plastic around and making a bit like a crater. It might have gone all the way through because this thing is really hot. But yeah, you don't want to just stab at it with the heat gun. I mean, you can depending on the scale of damage you're doing. But I highly suggest kind of sculpting with it. So just remember that you're not removing plastic, you're shaping it. So again, kind of start there and kind of push it out, and you'll get a lot more dimension to it. And this plastic's super dark, so you know what? Let me grab a lighter plastic. Give me one sec. I have a spare Boba Fett kit, and that will be easier to see, I think. All right, so let me grab an armor piece here. All right, that'll work. Okay, this should be easier to see. So let's use this chest piece right here. Oops, might as well make it usable. So again, pick your impact mark and then push the plastic outwards. And you kind of want to sculpt it. Trying to focus on it a little bit better. But that's pretty much the gist of how I do these impact marks. And you'll see it sets up super quick. There's you're not going to have a messy experience at all. So again, pick your mark and push the plastic around. Kind of give it a little bit of detail.
Push it around. And you can make them smaller as like if you want, you know, like I mean just a little bit like that. Or if you're doing like a glancing shot, one thing I like to do is kind of start on the edge here, kind of start at the angle you imagine the shot going. So go like a little bit like deep, sculpt it in, and then just draw down. And you can draw and just, like I said, it's going to take a little bit of a light touch, a little bit of practice. But once you get it down, you can really shape like the scars and stuff and how you want them to look. So, and then again, like I said, when it's something like this, like it's something with a more of a flat impact, I kind of don't push outwards like I do with the pointed tip. What I'll do is I'll hit the center and then I'll kind of swirl it, and it gives you a nice random pattern as it dries and stuff. So that's how I do these. And you don't always have to go all the way through the piece like I did here. That was an artistic choice, but I will warn you, depending on how thick the plastic piece is, it might happen anyways. So just, you know, be prepared for artistic interpretation depending on how your cut happens. So let me take this respirator off. I can barely breathe in that thing, but yeah, so that's pretty much how I do it. Let's see if I can get there. Of course, focus changes right on it. So there you go. So come on, there's too much shit for it to focus. There you go. So yeah, and then after you primer paint it, they're real easy. You get a nice pointed brush. I generally use acrylic steel or lacquer. Lacquer like aluminum works really good too if you're not using it on any joints or thin pieces. Or I'm sorry, not lacquer, enamel. If you're just doing it on like a blunt piece like this, you have no problems at all. And I like the enamel because it's a little more reflective and it looks more like actual steel. But yeah, that about does it. So make sure you always turn your heat pen off, which it is. So yeah, again, for these kind of standard bullet wounds, you want the edge that's a little bit blunt, not too sharp. And then for the larger impacts like that, use the kind of rounded tip there. And you can experiment a bit. Like if I'm doing like a big piece of damage, sometimes I'll throw this guy on and just really gouge at it. I think that's how I got my Boba Fett helmet to be so damaged looking. But yeah, that about does it. You can go to Harbor Freight and pick up one of these pens with all these different heads for like $10. And then if you have a soldering iron, that should do exactly the same thing. I just don't know how much plastic you want to get on your soldering iron. So invest the extra $10 and get one of these guys. So that about does it. I will upload this to the group so anyone who didn't see it live can watch it at their convenience. So, all right, guys, hope that was helpful.